Welcome to the Strive for Iron podcast. This is a place where some of us imperfect guys just get together and try to encourage one another as we're in this thing together. So this week, my co-host of Mr. Adam and I am your host Jim Hall. We're going to get together and we're going to talk about men dealing with fear. And we're not here to bust men in the teeth. We're here to encourage and help
hmm
men deal with some of the fears that they have in discussing biblical marriage and manhood online with a number of different men. This subject comes up a lot. So we're going to address that today. Men struggle because they feel like everything in the world is on their shoulders, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's at church. They feel like it's all on their shoulders. And they're trying to figure out how to navigate this thing and not fail. They're dealing with fear, they're dealing with things that they're afraid to lose. So we're going to get into that today and try to hash this out a little bit and help men out. All right, as we get into this, men are often accused of being unmotivated, spiritually lazy, emotionally detached, or absent in their leadership. Well, what's really going on? Here's a vicious cycle that so many men end up in. They will say, well, my wife says that she wants me to be the leader. So I tried to be the leader. But then she said that I was being controlling and a narcissist. So I quit trying to be the leader. And then she took control and she became the leader. And I retreated from leadership. But then my wife comes back and says she wants me to be the leader. And so it becomes a vicious cycle. So as we get into this, I'm going to ask my handsome co-host, Adam, what are some things that you have found that men are afraid of?
I wanted to revisit what you were saying. My wife wants me to lead. It's great that your wife wants to do that, but she's also gonna strive for your position, for that authority, per Genesis. She's gonna strive after your position as a husband, that authority.
Mhm.
But that
Absolutely.
authority's been that yes, that authority's been bestowed on us, the husbands.
Mhm.
So I would say the urge to lead shouldn't come from your wife. It needs to come from you, biblically.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So
It's a mandate from God. We don't have a choice. We are the
right,
head of the house. It's not a
right,
matter of whether we are or aren't. It's a matter of are we going to lead well? Are we going to step into the role?
right. And so to answer your question, well, given how society's been structured, I would say everything. They're afraid of being ruined financially. They're
Mhm.
afraid of losing their wife. They're afraid of the wife turning the children against him. He's afraid of being labeled a narcissist. I mean, there are lots of things.
Well, I saw a stat recently, and I'm going off memory here, so I might not have it down exactly. But as I recall, like 80% of women who are divorced will say their husband was a narcissist. And yet, statistically, only 9% of men are narcissists, whereas 19% of women are narcissists. And it's just like
So
you said, they're afraid of being labeled. I don't want to be labeled as controlling. I don't want to be labeled as a narcissist. And so they become afraid of being
yes.
labeled. And then they also become afraid of losing everything. If I try to
Mhm.
stand up and lead, if I don't do it the way my wife wants, she'll take off. She'll take my children. She'll sue me for half of everything I have, and I'll have to pay child support and maybe alimony for the rest of my life. And they're afraid of what they're going to
Yeah.
deal with.
Where a man works 60 hours a week, if he's lucky to get overtime, and all of it goes to his ex-wife and kids that hate him if the
Right.
wife poisoned the children against him. I'm not saying not all women do that, but a good majority of them do.
Right. Absolutely. And Solomon had to learn the hard way, the very hard way, considering he had what 700 wives and 400 concubines or whatever it was,
Yeah,
300
it was
concubines.
it totaled up to a little over 1,000. It was
Yeah,
700 wives and
that's a
then 300 concubines or something like that.
so he had to learn the hard way that picking the wrong woman is a very difficult and undesirable position to be in. Um, and men will live with nasty, disrespectful wives because he's afraid of what we just talked about. He's afraid that if I don't live with this nasty, disrespectful, nagging wife, then she's going to do this to me. And they become
Well,
afraid.
I know we got a couple of verses that support what a nagging wife is, like what that does
Hmm.
to a husband.
Right,
Does it say it breathes life into him and brings him peace, or does it say it's like rottenness in his bones?
right, right. Exactly. And see what men do is men will, because they, how do I say this the nice way? They don't think with their brain. Especially
Well,
when they're young, they think with another part of their body, and they will
yeah,
find a woman who talks right and she's pretty and she pleases him. He's not looking at, is this woman going to be the right wife? Is she going to be a good wife to me? He's looking at, she's really hot, or she
I
really knows how to
know.
push my buttons. So he will settle for the wrong woman. But that's not always the case.
Right.
Sometimes the woman presents herself as being a great woman, she's
Mhm.
going to be a great wife until
Yeah,
he stands up in front of her and says, I do. And then all of a sudden, another woman comes out, that Trojan
yeah,
horse.
yeah, she's playing the Trojan horse. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so he ends up getting stuck with a bad wife, not because of a bad decision on his part so much, but because she conned him, she fooled him. Um, so, Adam, outside of the obvious that she must be a Christian, and we all know that if you're a child of God, you got to marry a child of God. That's pretty obvious scripture.
Correct.
But
Correct.
what is the important thing a man must look for in a future wife?
How she treats her father. If the
Hmm.
father's in the picture, that would be a good telltale sign of how she's going to treat you. And
Right.
now, before I get attacked and say, well, the husband and father are two different things. Well, relationship wise, yes, but authority structure, no.
They're very
Um,
similar. Yep.
very similar in authority structure, and that would be a good telltale sign of
Mm-hmm.
how a man would see, okay, well, we know that a wife is supposed to submit to her husband. I'm going to marry this chick, or I plan to. So I want to see how she treats her dad.
Hmm.
And if the dad is kind of like I don't like confrontation, I like
It's
things
weak.
to be easy,
Right.
is kind of an emotionally immature person. And,
Hmm.
as a leader, I'm not saying we should go out and look for confrontation, but when confrontation presents itself, you better stand up.
Yeah, we got to stand up. And so
Right.
a man needs to be, in my opinion, a man needs to look for a woman who wants to be a biblical wife.
Yes.
She's not looking to be a cultural Christian wife. She wants to be a biblical Christian wife.
Yes.
That means she's submissive to her husband. She wants to be submissive to her husband. She wants to obey her husband. She wants to fulfill the roles of a wife. And most women will tell you what they stand for. If you just listen, they'll tell you. If they're
Oh, yeah.
feminists, they're going to tell you.
If
And
you
if they're feminists,
practice
you better run.
Men, if you practice patience, especially when looking for a wife, patience will wear down any wall. I mean, I'm not saying you don't marry for like 8 years. If you're holding on to her for 8 years, I think you know more or less what woman she's going to be.
Hey, if she's using terms like mutual submission, she believes that men and husband and wives are submissive to one another. If she's using
Run
terms
away.
like she believes that the husband is a servant leader or he is the spiritual leader, she's using terms like that. She's not a biblical wife. She's a
Oh,
cultural Christian wife.
right.
In what ways do you think the modern church is failing men when it comes to leadership? Where's the church getting it wrong?
They try to adhere to culture so they can grow their church,
Right,
but it's not growing the church the way Jesus or the apostles taught.
right.
It's growing
Uh,
the church the way they see fit, so we don't step on anybody's shoes.
yeah. The modern
Yeah.
church, and we've talked about this, how effeminized the modern church is. It's become effeminate. And the church tends to focus on making the women please, making the women happy in the church, and making them comfortable. And because of that, um, you're almost never going to hear biblical marriage
Right.
portrayed in church. You're always going to hear what we've been talking about, mutual submission, or
Right.
he's only the spiritual leader in the house. And I'll be so bold as to say, if your preacher uses the term spiritual leader when he's talking about marriage, you need to stop listening to him. If he's saying that
Now,
the husband is only a servant leader, does a husband serve? He absolutely serves. Did Jesus serve? Yes. But was that what he was? That was his leadership only service? No, it wasn't. He
now,
led his church.
right. Now, I will use the term spiritual leader, but there is authority with that.
Hmm. Sure.
Yeah,
And
there's
the problem
authority.
is that when you use that term, people look at it and say, oh, well, my only authority is in spiritual matters then.
No.
And that's not what scripture says.
Uh-uh. Yeah, you are
Not,
correct.
not even
But when,
close.
yeah, yeah, not even close.
And so what the church ends up telling people, even if it's not in so many words, but they basically say, yeah, you lead your wife, but only if she agrees with you. If
No,
she agrees with you, you
no,
be
when she married
strong.
you, when she entered a marriage covenant with you, when
Mhm.
her husband, when her father gave his authority to you to shepherd her, to lead her, he signed that contract to say, I will submit to you.
Yeah,
You are my husband. You
but
lead me. You have a vision for us. I want to submit to that vision.
when that
Mhm.
woman, even if she didn't say it out of her mouth, if that wedding was a Christian wedding, she is coming under the authority of her husband, period.
Mhm.
Whether she likes it or not. It's not a Christian marriage if it's not built on God's foundational principles. And when it comes to marriage, God's foundational principle is God first, the husband is in charge of the wife, and the wife is under him. That is God's, and that's the one thing that they'll avoid. They'll avoid that in church. They never talk about that.
Right.
Rarely. They'll also teach be strong. Men, be strong, but only if your wife approves. What? So basically, it comes down to be a man. Men, you are to be strong and be a leader, be the man, but just don't act like one. And
Right.
that's kind
Yeah.
of what the church teaches nowadays. And the result is that men retreat. They're confused. They don't understand, how does this work? I don't even understand my role. I'm supposed to be the leader, but I have to be just the servant. But so my leadership is only service, and I'm supposed to be the leader, but only in spiritual matters. And how does that work? What does that look like? And then how do we mutually submit to one another if it's a hierarchy? When the man is clearly supposed to be in charge, how's that work in mutual submission? It's all confusing. So men tend to retreat. They go into silence or work or hobbies, hide behind screens, or become emotionally distant because they're confused. They don't know what to do, how to make this thing work, how to make it happen. Let's take a quick break from the podcast today because there's something I'm excited to bring you. I'm introducing you to my very first novel, Surrender. Surrender is a captivating Christian thriller that focuses on the life of Victoria Michaels. Victoria was a powerful woman who built her whole life on always having her hands on the controls. Looks like I have some work to do out here. But back to the novel. Victoria was a woman who could, and very often did, face down the mightiest of adversaries. Until one day, a dangerous predator came knocking. He starts dismantling her well-oiled life, piece by piece. But when the danger turns personal, she is forced to rely on Officer Blaine Johnson, a man whose calm strength both steadies her and pushes her right to the brink. Blaine has seen it all in his storied career, but there's something about Victoria that unsettles him. She seems so familiar, yet her story just doesn't quite add up. And as he's pulled deeper into her chaos, he's torn between his duty, his faith, and a pull that he doesn't really understand. And as the threat closes in, buried secrets rise to the surface, tying them both to something far darker than either expected. What started as a clash of the wills turns into a desperate fight for survival. And in the end, surrender may be the only way to win. If you enjoy suspense, slow burn romance, and real world faith, and characters that battle with God almost as much as they battle with one another, Surrender is for you. It's available now on westbow.com, Amazon, and most other major book retailers. Or you can just click on the link in the description. I would greatly appreciate your support and can't wait to send you a copy. All right, let's get back to today's episode. So that can lead to the next question. How does weakness in the man lead to destruction of the marriage?
Because the husband just shuts down, Jim.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, he doesn't do anything because he's afraid that he's going to mess up, and he's afraid that he's got to do everything perfectly.
right.
And I've been in those shoes. I've been in that thought space.
Mm-hmm.
And you just feel so alone. There's nobody you can talk to because you're afraid you're going to be labeled as a narcissist. You're afraid.
Yeah,
I mean, it goes back to what we've been afraid of. Well, what
right,
what men are afraid of?
right.
Well,
And
not men, but husbands.
yeah,
And you really have to go to the Father in prayer. And
yeah.
you really need to surround yourself with those like-minded individuals that aren't afraid, even if they're of different belief systems,
Mm-hmm.
that they're not afraid to say, yes, I am the leader of my household.
And I think people need to understand weakness in the man always leads to insecurity in the woman.
Mhm.
Women, by nature, God put it in their DNA. They look for strength in their man. They
Yes,
look for that leadership in their man. If you're out
yes.
for a walk and all of a sudden there's a big old Doberman pinscher running at you, your wife is going to jump behind you. She's not going to jump in front of you. Her instinct is going to be protect me, and she's going to jump behind you and let you take on the dog. And that's what you're there for, is take on the dog.
Mhm.
And this is what happens. And so men think, well, I have to pander, or I have to allow, or I have to accept, because I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I don't. Well, by doing that, you're bringing destruction into your marriage, because your wife, whether she likes it or not, whether she says it or not, is yearning for your leadership. She's yearning for you to take charge.
Yes.
Remember, and you alluded to it earlier, Genesis chapter 3 says that the woman will desire or have a urging, or a will to be over her husband. But God's response to that is, but he will rule over you. He did not
Correct.
say he will pander to you, he will serve you, he will coddle you. He said he will rule over you. He will take the leadership over you. And so weakness always brings insecurity and problems to a marriage. And
Mhm.
women by nature fight against what they need the most. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah. Yeah, I have, James. Or Jim,
Yeah,
sorry.
always, always. What are your thoughts? Anything else on that before we move to the next thing?
Man, 2 Timothy 1:7 is coming to my mind, and
Hmm.
verse 7, for God did not give us a spirit of timidity or cowardice or fear, but he has given us a spirit of power and of love and of sound judgment and personal discipline, abilities that result in a calm, well-balanced mind and self-control.
Hmm.
Fear
Yes,
fear does not come from God. Fear comes from the
ever.
devil.
Yes, yes. And that's a great point that we need to keep, that we need to think about.
Mhm.
Fear does not come from God. Your wife, very possibly, and a lot of men dealing with this, where the wife tries to put the husband into fear. That doesn't come from God. She's putting that fear on in him. But courage is not automatic. You're not just automatically a courageous man. You have to
No,
learn
that
courage.
is that is earned. Yeah.
You have to, yeah, you have to learn that. And as you come into this thing of marriage, and there's a lot of uncertainty and confusion when you first get married, you have to learn what it is to be the courageous leader for your family. And so, Adam, tell us, how does a man practice courage? How does he put that into practice?
Well, the Proverbs are full of wisdom, but one particularly, Proverbs 29 or 29:25 says the fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in and puts his confidence in the Lord will be exalted and safe. So, biblically, put your trust in the Lord.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
doing some you're doing something that God has instituted.
hmm,
Do not rely on your own understanding. because
Mm-hmm.
you won't, you may get by a little bit, but you're going to ultimately let yourself down.
Mm-hmm.
You need to trust in God and how, both men and women, wives and
Mm-hmm.
husbands, listen to this. You trust God. What
Mm-hmm.
he and his apostles have said throughout scripture is what you need to do.
Many men fear reaction. So when the wife is disrespectful to the man, he thinks, I ought to deal with that. I ought to confront that. But then he's like, oh, if I do, she's going to lose her mind. She's going to call me a control freak. She's going to call me a narcissist. She's going to spread around that I'm a terrible person. So he doesn't say anything. And so he's afraid of what her reaction is. So he doesn't say anything because he's afraid she's going to lose her mind. Go
Right.
ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, well, what if? What if she has a reaction?
Right.
And is she going to talk to you horribly? Is she going
Right.
to talk to you disrespectfully? As a biblical leader, husbands, what
Mhm.
are you going to do about it?
Right.
Are you
You're
going
just going to
to
let it go on.
are you going to be passive? Are you going
Hmm.
to let it go on and pretend everything's okay, put on a big smile, everything's fine, everything's
Right.
okay? Or are you going to calmly and lovingly practice the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, and patience? There's no
Hmm.
peace in your home, so there has to be peace.
And I want men to understand something. Somebody is in control in your house.
Mhm.
I don't care what your beliefs are. Somebody is in control in that house.
Correct.
Weakness in the man always drives the woman to control. I would
Correct.
say in the overwhelming majority of American houses, the woman is in control. That's
Correct.
just the reality of it. And if you're weak, listen, man, if you are weak, your wife will control your home. It's not a maybe. If you don't control the house, your wife does. And if your wife is controlling your house, you're weak. Sorry, that gets some people mad. I've had some men get fighting mad over that because I called them weak, but I'm like, well, your wife is in control of your house. You're weak.
Right.
And in Joshua 1:9, it says, be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you. As a man of your house, God is with you. It's okay for you to stand up and be a man of courage in your own home. Courage is not natural. God reminded him over and over again. He had to remind him. He had to remind Gideon. Moses had to be reminded of this. Jonah had to be reminded to be strong, to be courageous, to get up, be
Mhm.
the man. And so most men plan on being a husband, but they don't plan on being an authority figure. But you
Well,
are an authority figure.
right. I'd like to do that with another comparison. A lot of, we'll say, modern Americans, they want the label, the rewards of being a Christian,
Mhm.
which we all know the rewards, but they don't want to put forth any effort. Not to
Right,
say that salvation is merited,
right.
but there are things that we as husbands and women as wives have to obey
Hmm.
in order so that we're not sinning.
Right. Another thing I want men to understand is when you lead your home the way God commands you to lead your home, God has a stake in your success.
Yes.
If you try to run it your own way, God steps out of it. Go ahead, run it your own way, and you'll run it into the ground. But if you run it the way God calls you to run your home, God has a stake in the success because it's his model, it's his plan. Again, Joshua 1:9, have I not commanded you? Did you notice he didn't request it? It wasn't a suggestion. It was not a recommendation. He said, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified or dismayed or intimidated, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. As a
Hmm.
man of God, doing it God's way, God is with you. What do you say?
With God, you can do all things. I
Yeah.
mean, especially when you're trying to do something that he's instituted in the first place.
And I think this when I talk and I've talked to lots, I've debated this subject 1,000 times on biblical roles. women preachers, things like that. And when I hear a man try to defend something so indefensible as women preachers, what I see is a weak man. What I see is a coward because he knows better than what he's saying. He knows the scripture, he knows exactly what it says, and he's trying to convince me that it doesn't say what it actually does. And why is he
Yeah,
doing that? Because he's afraid.
yeah. Well, modern culture doesn't teach this, and so modern culture must be right,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And we got to make the church and the culture get along. And that seems to be their main goal. And it's
That's
impossible.
never
It
going to be a
cannot. No, it cannot. They're never going to be in agreement.
never.
So, so whenever you're weak, whenever the man is weak in his home, his wife's disrespect grows. Always. Has that been your experience? Have you seen that in people's lives around you?
Oh, not just in other people, my own. There were times in my marriage, I just I didn't lead.
Yeah,
I didn't,
absolutely.
and
Me too. So weakness creates or builds disrespect, and weakness in the man also festers resentment. If you
mhm,
see a wife who's resentful of her husband, you can rest assured she has a weak husband. That's where that resentment comes from. Weak, bad leadership. The roles collapse. And I would think the greatest example of that is going into a church where the woman is standing behind the pulpit pretending to preach and pretending to be the pastor, and her husband, her authority, her leader, is sitting in a pew in the congregation.
applauding her.
What? How absolutely disgusting is that? And no such man will ever allow that who's a strong man. That's a
Mhm.
weak man. That's a coward that does that. And a lot of times it's not even because the woman wants to be in control. She feels like she has to be because the
Yeah,
man won't step up and lead.
drop
Somebody
the ball.
must lead. Men either lead or they fear, and there's no middle ground. You're either the leader or you're the coward, and there's no place in between.
Right.
So here's a test for you,
Yeah.
Mr. Adam. Are you ready for a test?
I hope so. I didn't study for it.
I'll give you the scenario. You tell me if the wife or the husband is the head of the home.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, the wife actively seeks to submit and obey her husband.
Oh man, husband 100% is
He's
the
the
head of
head
the
of that.
household with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about if the husband or the wife says we are equal in roles and in
No,
position?
no.
So if the husband or the wife says we are equal in roles and position, the wife is the head of the home. You can rest
Right.
assured she is the head of the home. If the husband or the wife says we're equal partners, the wife is the head of the home. How about if the man actively makes rules and sets standards for what is and is not acceptable in his home?
Oh, okay, okay. He wants his wife to become the best person
Yeah,
she can be.
yeah.
He sees
So,
something in her and he's like, "Look, okay, well, I'm making rules for this, this, and this, and you're gonna
hmm
follow them, and
yeah,
I'm gonna hold you to them."
yeah.
Oh,
And so
100%. Yeah,
man's the head of the house in that situation.
correct.
How about this one? I don't need my husband to lead me. I'm an adult.
Uh, but
The wife is
no,
definitely the head of that house. Not
no,
even a question.
not even a question. Yeah, the
Yeah.
last two we didn't even need to answer. I mean,
Here's a trick one for you. We
okay.
discuss and then make a joint decision. I
Hmm.
think a better way to word that would be we discuss and then the husband makes the decision. That's the way it should be. But if they make it a
Correct.
joint decision, I'll guarantee you it's the wife's decision
And
that's being
that was
chosen.
going to be that's what I was going to say next is that
hmm
where I was saying context matters is that hey, we need to talk about this
hmm
and I want to get what your feedback is, but ultimately we're going to go with what I think we need to do.
Right. And then, another one that I've often heard is I don't have the right to demand anything from my wife.
Yes, you do.
In that home, the wife is the head of the home, period.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I completely agree.
Absolutely. And there's a number of them. We could go into some others, but the purpose of all of these are little qualifiers, unbiblical qualifiers. Oh, he's my spiritual leader, which means He's only leading if I think he's being spiritual enough.
He's
Or he's
leading
my
on her terms.
right. He's
Yeah,
my servant leader, which means he's not my leader at all. He's just a
yeah,
servant to me.
he's
Or
leading on
men and
her.
women are mutually submissive, which means the wife is the head of the home. There is no
100%.
mutual submission. The
100%.
wife is the head of the home. These are all quiet qualifiers that are designed to take the teeth out of the man's leadership, to make him just a figurehead leader. And the problem is that's almost all you're going to hear in the evangelical church today. It's unfortunate, but that's just what it is. So here's the hard truth. This is something
Okay.
that we need to understand. Leadership always carries risk,
Yes.
always. And I could get into a long litany of examples of military leaders that have made, great decisions that if they were wrong, they would have been erased from history in a sense and lost their position. But because they stood strong, made a decision, and went with it, um, great things happened. But you can't make a decision as a man, as a leader, um, without there being risk. There's always risk. So if you're going to
Yeah.
stand up and lead your wife, there's a risk that she's going to call you names. There's a risk that she's going to leave you and all that. But I'll tell you what, far more divorces happen because men don't lead than
Mhm.
because they do. And when women are faced with leadership, most of the time, women will fall in line and follow.
Mhm.
Very few of them will buck good leadership to the point of destroying their home. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, that summed it up. Leadership always carries risk. And guys, you don't know the future. You don't know what your decisions are going to hold, but you got to own it either way. Whether it's going to be good, yeah, this is great, or man, this was a bad idea.
Man, I want you to understand cowardice always leads to misery.
Yep.
Always.
That's 100%. 100%. Yeah.
100%. Cowardice always leads to misery. Women are are insecure by nature and they get their security through a strong man. And they can deny that all they want to, and I don't care, but that's just the reality of it. And so when a man is shaky, when a man is weak, the woman is insecure. It always happens. So you can worry about being liked and you can be completely ineffective, or you can be faithful to the role that God placed you in, and sometimes you're going to be misunderstood, but you can't be both. I
Yeah.
want men to make the decision. Which one will I do? Will I lead in truth or will I hide in comfort? Will I answer to God or will I answer to opinions of man? Will I protect peace or pursue righteousness? Because being a strong leader doesn't always bring peace. Ultimately, it does. But weakness always destroys peace in the long run.
Mhm.
And am I man enough for the role I find myself in? Before you put that ring on your hand, before you stand before the crowd and say, I do, you better decide that you're man enough for what you're stepping into because it is huge. Being a man of the house is no joke, it is
No.
huge. And you're taking on something that's bigger than any marathon you've ever been in. I want to throw out something that men can do. I want you to identify one area where you have been ducking or avoiding being the leader. Identify that area. And then ask yourself, what exactly are you afraid of losing?
And I'd like
What
to, I'd like to
yeah.
issue a
hmm
few. So one I would say is pray for courage, not comfort. So
hmm
seek understanding and knowledge first.
Absolutely.
Everything else will come.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, and then the next challenge is take one small, clear step towards leadership. Just one.
Yes. Just take one step. One
But do
step.
not go back.
Right.
If your wife starts pushing you, you stand firm. You be
hmm
stubborn. Be
Yeah.
stubborn in the truth.
Courage grows through action, not intention.
Yeah.
You can intend to be courageous, but courage is shown in action. So we just want to encourage men to not be afraid. Don't live by fear. Don't let fear control and dominate your life.
Yeah.
God will. bless your leadership. He will bless the role that you're in and the place that you're in. So just remember, and we've quoted this before, we'll quote it again. Galatians 16, 13 through 14, it says, watch and stand fast in the faith. Be brave. Be strong. Let all that you do be done in love. That's what we leave with you this week. Be strong.
Right.
Be courageous. Lead well. Lead with conviction. God
I,
bless. Oh, go ahead.
one more thing.
Mhm.
Instead of First Galatians, let's try First Corinthians
First,
16.
did I say First Galatians?
I think you did, but it's okay.
It was a yard sale Bible. I found one that had First Galatians in it. Don't go by what I say. Go by what I mean.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Please hit like and share. Uh, Subscribe. Follow us as we try to build this to benefit you. And we just appreciate it. And thank you for spending your time with us. Have a great day. God bless.
God bless.